Hello, and in this video we're going to be talking about Python Lambdas. So hopefully you are ready. There's a lot of confusion out there, maybe not confusion. People are a little bit afraid of Lambdas, and it's totally not something you should be afraid of. Everything's just fine. So we're just going to dive right into it. And there are three types of Python developers. Those love Lambdas, those that hate them, and those that are afraid of them. This video is for those people who are afraid of Lambdas. Maybe you've seen them in like a list comprehension and it's been confusing to you. You see some kind of keyword of some kind, maybe, you don't know. It's very cryptic. It can be very intimidating. And so this video hopefully will destroy any fears you have about it. We're just going to vanquish all those fears and make you totally comfortable with Lambdas, or at least hopefully. Special note, I think Lambdas have a terrible name. It's very confusing to people. It's not very intuitive at all to the average person. And especially now with AWS Lambda's service. It's their serverless architecture that also supports Python that has made the confusion even worse. People forget how lost some beginners can be and how confusing new concepts can be. And so they know Lambda serverless, they see this in list comprehension, and their minds are blown. They don't understand what the connection is. There is no connection between Lambda expressions in the Python language and Amazon AWS. There's nothing. Don't worry about it. Okay, so what are Lambda expressions? They're just small, nameless functions. They're like throwaway functions that contain a single expression. They're short, single use, throwaway, disposable code. Probably a little bit confusing. There are really two real ways to make a function. Okay, this is the way that hopefully you know. Defining a function. So we're going to define this square function that is going to square. So we give it x and it will return x times x, okay? But we can also do that with Lambda. This is your first introduction, okay? So Lambda x. So this is going to be the very argument we give it, and then x times x is going to be the work that it does. And then that's going to go into a container, we'll call it, called square, that will be able to be called just like the square that was defined as a function. Don't do this. Don't abuse Lambdas like this. Follow Pep8, use the def, like make a real function, all right? This is just to show you that it's just to help teach, all right? Don't judge me, okay? So these two functions here, this one and this one, will behave the same, and they will do the same thing. You can see, so we can give square an argument like so, and it'll return a square, and you could do the same thing with this. Okay, so why even use Lambdas at all? Lambdas are not necessary. All right, they are not, but they are helpful. I could be wrong about that. I've never seen a case where Lambdas were 100% the only answer you could possibly do. I'm pretty sure you could always do something else. But they're helpful. There are cases where they can make your code more readable, and we always want more readable code. Okay. Oh, my slides are messed up again. Okay. Hopefully this is not going to be too much. We're going to be introducing the map function, and the map function is where you, sorry, this is, hopefully it's not throwing you off. It's throwing me off. We're going to go here. So the map function, what it does is you give it a function, and then you give it an iterator, and then it uses that function on every member of the iterator. Okay, so hopefully we're here. We've got data, and it is a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we have that function that we defined before of square takes x and then multiplies x by x to return its square. Okay. So we've got square data. So we're going to run this square function, or put the square function in as a argument, and then the data as an argument. So what that's going to do is create an iterator that has the square of 1, the square of 2, the square of 3, the square of 4. And here we go. We're gonna walk through it all and print it all. Forget this. I don't somehow a conditional argument got in there. Don't look at this. This here that I highlighted, just ignore that. Pretend like it doesn't exist. I would redo this tape, but this one is cursed. I've done this 3 times now. This is a sign. Okay. So that's doing this with doing map with a normal function. Okay. Now we could do the same thing with one of these lambdas that we've made. So this is the same code we had before, but now we've got some data, and then we're going to do pretty much the same thing. We're going to put this function, give this function to map along with this data, and then it's going to go through that entire list and use this function on every item in that list. All right, and it's going to return us another iterator that has all the answers in it. So that looks exactly the same. All this code is exactly the same, except the way we make that function. Okay. Now, we don't need to do this line. This line here is not necessary. As a matter of fact, it is. I believe, like I said earlier, Pepe, if your linter or whatever, giving you suggestions, will tell you usually don't do that. But yeah, you should not do that. Here's what you can do. This is where you actually see lambdas in the wild. All right, so we got our map function. We have our data as an argument, and then we have a function as an argument. The function as an argument is going to be this, x times x. See that? So actually writing the function inside. All right, because that's such a simple. That's such a simple thing. Like you don't need to write all this. You could just do this right here. You've made less lines of code. All right, and it's going to do the exact same thing, and that's what a lambda is. See how this is like a small throwaway function? Once this isn't used anywhere else. This isn't reusable. I can't use this later on, like way down in more lines of code. Once we do this map function, this inside part is done. It's executed. It's done. It can't be reusable. So here is a very common example you'll see out in the wild. So we have a list of dictionaries. So each dictionary has a name and a count. So how many apples? 5. How many oranges? 1. How many cherries? 12. We would like to sort that list by the value in their dictionaries. All right. So we use the sort function, and so the sort function needs to know what value, or it needs to have a number that it's going to sort by, right? Well, I shouldn't say number, a value that it's going to sort by. And so what we're going to do is have that key be the result of a lambda function. And that lambda function is going to be the count. All right. So as sort goes through, it's going to be getting that count, and it's going to be sorting by that count number. My slides are still messed up. Oh, it's so terrible. Okay, so be careful. Lambdas are fun, but don't overuse them. Lambda abuse is real. And it threatens code readability. Don't ever let your desire for brevity or conciseness threaten your code's readability. I see a lot of people abusing lambdas. It can make Python code resemble Perl, and that's not a good thing. You need to really value and cherish readability. That's one of I think the core strengths that Python has as a language. And one way to really make your code less readable is to abuse lambdas and make very, very complex lambdas. Like if you have a lambda that's significantly complex, like let's say we had, this this guy here, this square, let's imagine this was like, a much, much more complex mathematical equation. You should pull that out and put that into a actual real function, because it's going to make, well, one, it's going to make, if you have a very complex lambda, it's going to make your line very large, and it's not going to be concise anymore. It's going to break. I won't go into my rant, but lambdas are very great, very powerful. I don't want to discourage you from using them at all. They're great. Like in this example here, that's a wonderful use of lambda. All right, just don't overdo it. Like, take a look at your code and say, hey, am I going to be able to read this in a week, 2 weeks, a month, a year? If I was to come back and read this code 10 years from now, will I be able to understand it? Because even if you aren't, somebody else might, have to read that code. It's amazing. No one ever thinks their code is going to live as long as it ends up living. I mean, you talk to any old timer and they will tell you stories about code that was never intended to live as long as it's lived. Anyhow, I'll stop ranting on code readability. That's probably for a whole other video. But yeah, so hopefully, you have a little bit more, you're one step closer to feeling comfortable with lambdas. Yeah, thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, hit that like button. If you want to see more of these, subscribe. And if you have any comments or questions, please leave those in the comments below, and I will try to respond to those as they come in. Yeah, thank you very much for watching, and have a very good night.